live stream. Got it. Okay. Here's my Shabbat Shalom, everybody. As you know, tomorrow will mark 20 years since the 9/11 attacks. This event shattered our world, making us realize that we are far more vulnerable on our own soil than we ever thought. We responded by engaging in a 20-year war in Afghanistan that has just ended. We left in defeat, our war on terror anything but a success. Let us hope that we've at least learned that this kind of response does not make us or the world any safer. We pray for a new year that will usher in a period of peace. Eli, Eli, my God, my God.
שלא ייגמר לעולם החול והים רשרוש של המים ברק השמיים תפילת החול והים רשרוש של המים ברק השמיים תפילת Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
And Lori Magnus is going to light our Shabbat candles for us.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold us, so may we by our light give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed is Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, by whose mitzvot we are hallowed, who commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. May we be blessed with Shabbat joy. May we be blessed with Shabbat peace. May we be blessed with Shabbat light.
Thank you, Lori. And Morris is going to lead us in the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'sabat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon chinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila l'mikrae kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabat. Amen.
L'chaim. A Jewish prayer. Sovereign of the universe, let there be no good hope that is not a command. Let there be no prayer that does not ask to become a deed. Let there be no promise unless it is kept. Upon this earth may just and reverent nations arise, needing no challenge like war, no more undone by poverty and injustice. Let them be places where every person matters. So shall the human community, rich in beginnings and poor in conclusion, grow mature in wisdom and ripe in understanding. Upon this earth, may people of spirit arise, people of integrity and compassion, creators of God-seeking peoples, slow to judge others, quick to judge themselves. So may they be all their days and years. We ask for a new age of the Spirit, your sovereignty on earth. Let the eternal be God of all the earth. Lo yisagoi, may we study war no more.
Goy el goy cherem, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherem, lo yilmedu od milchama. Goy el goy cherem, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy cherem, lo yilmedu od milchama.
A prayer by Rabbi David Wolpe. Dear God, how do we pray for what was lost? We cannot pray for deliverance or a miracle, for the tragedy has already burned itself into our souls. Children have grown fatherless. Families are long since bereaved. We know there is no prayer to change the past. So we pray to live with memory, with constant love, with a promise both to combat evil and to cherish goodness. Do not let our pain cloud our hopes or crush our hearts. Help us grow through this tragedy, keep faith with its victims, and sustain our trust in you. Lahatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן.
And we continue with the Baruch Hu, the call to worship.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach, leolam vaed.
Events such as 9/11 occur in great part because human beings have a difficult time accepting and respecting difference. In an interview with Krista Tippett, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs spoke about the relationship between particularism and universalism. Tippett asked him, even as you honor the dignity of difference in the contemporary world, you are upholding the dignity of particularity. He responded, by being what only I can be, I give humanity what only I can give. It is my uniqueness that allows me to contribute something unique to the universal heritage of humankind. I sum up the Jewish imperative very simply, and it has been like this since the days of Abraham: to be true to your faith and a blessing to others, regardless of their faith. That's the big paradox when you really reach the very depth of spirituality. I don't know why it is. And Isaiah comes along and he delivers his prophecies, and they're so particular to that faith, that place, that time. Yet I call Isaiah the poet laureate of hope. At the height of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, at the very height of it, there he is quoting verbatim 2 lines from Isaiah chapter 40. I doubt whether Isaiah, 27 centuries ago in the Middle East, could envisage that one day a Black civil rights activist would be moved by his words. But it's the particularity of Isaiah that spoke to Martin Luther King. That's how we as a people, that's how we are as a people. I don't know why it is, how it is, but it's the authentic, the unique, the difference that makes us feel enriched when we encounter it. And a bland, plastic, synthetic, universal, can't tell one brand of coffee from another brand of coffee, by contrast, makes life flat, uninteresting, and essentially uncreative. So we cling to particularity while we also embrace difference and the fact that we're all one family. Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, u'kimu mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokvenu, Kumenu nasiach behukecha, ונזמק בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם yameinu uvahem nege yomam v'layla nege yomam v'layla ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael Ohev amo
We continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Carol Lee, please lead us in the Ve'ahavta.
My pleasure. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'chol nafshecha u'chol
Uh-oh.
ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavcha hayom al bavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Thank you, Carol Lee. This is a prayer by Alden Solovey called To the Terrorist. You who hold the sky captive, the sea prisoner, the land in chains. You who hide in caves, retreat to the wilderness, disappear behind false names and forged papers. You who smuggle guns and arms, hide rockets in cities and bombs in homes, build weapons against the innocent and the bystander. You whose designs are destruction, whose plans are fear, whose joy is hate. You who harden your hearts and wrap yourselves in death. What evil has robbed you of love? What evil has robbed you of your compassion, your goodness, your humanity? What lies have invaded your minds? so that you choose to die in order to kill. We who love our lives and liberty stand firm and strong against terror. We will defend our nation and our people. We will protect our land and our homes. And we pray for you to find hope and comfort in lives of peace. The Micha Mocha.
I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. 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 I've been waiting in the Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha Nedar B'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Osef Ele Nora Tehilot Osef Ele. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. 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 I've been waiting in the Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha Nedar B'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Osef Ele Nora Tehilot Osef Ele. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. 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 I've been waiting in the sea.
As I mentioned, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs calls Isaiah the prophet of hope. And it's this hope for the future that we all aspire to. Here are the verses that Martin Luther King quoted in that speech. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain. And the glory of God will be revealed, and all people will see it together. For the mouth of Adonai has spoken. May it be so. V'shamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי שת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We continue with the tefillah.
Adonai, Sephatai, Sephatai, Tiftach, Ufi, Yaki.
Singing, which is lovely, but
yes.
could you mute yourself, please, so we can let, okay.
Adonai, Sephatai, Sephatai, Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sephatai, Sephatai, Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Hasdei Avot ve'imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei v'neihem leman Shemo be'ahava. Zochreinu לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, וכותבנו בספר חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה לך חיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יחללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש.
And we continue silently for a moment.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Shalom, ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol het uvechol shah bishlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael עולמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
We take a moment now to think of those in need of healing, whether of body, of mind, or of spirit. We think of congregants and friends and family of congregants, Jonathan Davidson, Ben Henderson, Kara Gilman, Rabbi Steve Robbins, Gloria Mangus, Steve Lux, Leslie Ferris, Pamela Mangus, Johnny Sikat, Roberta Gershon, Sid Love, Larry Miller, Myrna Pavlak. Would anybody like to add a name? Would anybody like to add a name to that list? Jess Landis. Anyway, go to this top here. Ruth and Sandra Landis, Andrew and Greg Young, Diana Anderson, Sheila Winston, Jackson Griffin, Art Ochoa, Linda Hecht, Robert Helmbrecht, Carol Nagengast, Eleanor Gailey, Stephen Lee, Ron Jones, Kirsten Walsh, Ken Stewart, Babette Cooper, Myrna Barth, Jean Kramer, Chuck Kramer.
Lad Glassman,
Carol Balash,
Jeff Simons,
Ed Archibek,
there's also Esperanza Moriel, Rabbi Annette Koch, Harav Chana, Rachel Bat-Rosef Wolf, Stephen Strauss, Kelly Work, Kenny Hayes, Carol Chase Balish, Marilyn Whitmer, Abby Sandaha, Deanna Cohen. Please join us in the Misha Baroff, the prayer for healing.
El na rafana la nu. El na rafana la nu. Dear God of our ancestors, help us renew our faith. Grant us a perfect healing. Bring peace to all our days. El narafana la nu. El narafana la nu. Restore our strength of body. Help clarify our minds. Refresh our tired spirits. Rejuvenate our light. El narifana la nu. El narifana la nu. Thank you for all these blessings. throughout our days and nights. We celebrate the journey, this precious gift of life. El na refana lanu. El na refana lanu. El na refana lanu. El na refana lanu.
20 years ago, I led a service while I was a student rabbi up in Victoria, British Columbia. It was Rosh Hashanah, just like 2 or 3 days after 9/11. And so, of course, I threw out the sermon I had written and rewrote the whole thing. And I thought it'd be interesting to read it tonight, because I think most of it still applies. As we embark on the Yamim Noraim, the days of awe, we engage in self-examination and reflection, both with regard to our own behavior and with regard to our place in the world. So this year, this Rosh Hashanah Eve, how do we make sense of the tragic events of the last week? How do we fathom the depth of anger and hatred that was unleashed by 4 groups of hijackers? How do we process the fact that thousands of innocent people, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, met their end in a fiery inferno? What do we do with images of people hurtling out the window down 90 floors as they jumped or were propelled to their death? We've experienced an array of emotions. Television stations and computer screens. People were stunned with shock and disbelief. I thought they were replaying scenes of the World Trade Center bombing in 1993 as a kind of anniversary tribute, one listener said. I thought that this was another version of the War of the Worlds, the mock drama orchestrated by Orson Welles in 1938, said another. Once the reality set in, fear gripped most of us. A typical response. Before I could react emotionally, I needed to make sure that everyone in my family was safe. People jammed phone lines, calling New York and Washington, D.C., frantically checking on loved ones. For many, the news was grim. Only a few hundred deaths were confirmed, leaving thousands with no certainty as to whether their spouse or child or friend or colleague was still alive. And those of us with no one we knew to be in danger, those of us lucky enough not to have someone we loved in one of those planes, in one of those towers, or on the western side of the Pentagon, we lost something very precious too. We lost our innocence, our sense that we in the North American continent are safe from these kinds of random acts of violence. Grief and anger now compete for our loyalties. It's not just the cruelty of this tragedy that unnerves us. It's also the absolute randomness of this event. If your office happened to be located above the 85th floor of the North Tower, your chances of escaping the flames were nil. If you got to work late that morning, your life was saved. A bond trading company lost all of their 700 employees who came to the office on time that Tuesday. The company's CEO is still alive because he had decided to take his child to her first day of kindergarten and arrived at the World Trade Center in time to see the horror unfolding. One woman interviewed on national television had been laid off on Monday, the day before the tragedy. What was bad news turned out to be news that saved her life. As we cry out in pain, we ask, why? In our quest for meaning, how do we proceed? Where do we turn? Listen to these words. How does a city sit solitary that was full of people? How has she become like a widow? She weeps sore in the night. This sounds like a description of Manhattan's southern tip, doesn't it? Well, surprisingly, these words were written over 2,000 years ago. They're actually the opening verses of the book of Lamentations, part of our Hebrew Bible. In this case, the people are mourning the destruction of Jerusalem. Our tradition knows about this kind of agony. We've all just been through it so many times because as Jews, we've experienced many fiery infernos. And our Bible provides us both with the language to express our sorrow and with guidance as to how we might respond. Books like Lamentations, Psalms, and Job are prime examples. I spent a lot of time studying the book of Job. I wanted to know why innocent people suffer. And I was convinced that Job would give me the answer. As it turns out, I got an answer, but it was to a different question. So let me review the story for you. Job is a righteous man. He does all the right things. He worships God. He's a good family man. He feeds the poor, and he's a stalwart of his community. And God is really proud of Job. Well, this annoys Hasatan. Hasatan is a prosecuting angel, and he challenges God. Sure, Job is a righteous man, says Satan, but that's because he has everything he could ever want: family, wealth, property. Take that all away from him, and you'll see that he will curse you to your face. So God makes a bet with Satan and allows Satan to take everything away from Job. Job's life is devastated, but Job's response is, God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. God is really pleased, but Satan challenges God further. Of course, God hasn't cursed you because you've taken away everything except his health. Take that away, then he will surely curse you. So Job is afflicted with painful sores and boils. His life becomes a nightmare of pain, but he does not curse God. Instead, he argues with God for 35 chapters. Job demands justice. He refuses to accept his torment. His friends who have come to mourn with him become more and more vehement in telling him that his plight is due to his sins. You must have done something wrong, they insist, because God punishes bad people only. But Job is unyielding. What is happening to him is unfair, and he will not be satisfied until God explains why he is going through all of this. Finally, towards the end of the book, God appears to Job and launches into two very lengthy speeches. The speeches address God's power, but they never explain why Job is suffering. What God says in essence is, who are you to question me? In the end, however, God says something very intriguing. God says that unlike Job's friends, Job has spoken right of God. We'll come back to that in a moment. Job's friends come to comfort him at the end of the book, and God restores Job's fortune. So neither God nor the book of Job ever answered my question, why do innocent people suffer? Job suffers because God made a bet with Satan, and God doesn't even tell him that much. Nor does God ever justify Job's misfortune. But what about the rest of us? The usual explanation is that human beings have free will and are responsible for inflicting pain on others. But where is the justice in the innocent having to pay the price? The fact is, I don't think we'll ever know why God has allowed evil to exist in the world as it does. So what question does the book of Job answer? I believe it answers the question how, not the question why. In other words, in the face of evil, given the world as it is, how do we respond? And I believe that the book of Job suggests two ways. One, it suggests that we engage in dialogue with God. God says that Job has spoken right. In other words, our tradition tells us that it is okay to question God, even to be angry with God. We can argue with God and demand justice from God. And it may well be that in this exchange, we will discover a way through the pain. The second thing that the book suggests is that it is through community and the comfort that we can give one another, and that is how we can attack the problem of evil. Through the love and help we give each other, we enable the divine presence to be felt. That summer, I had worked as a hospital chaplain, and I entered into people's lives at moments of acute pain and acute crisis. And the greatest gift that I had to offer them was just being there, letting them know that I cared, acknowledging their pain, helping them draw on their own inner resources. Sometimes even silence spoke volumes, because these patients and their families knew that they were not alone, knew that their suffering mattered to someone else. A tough-talking construction worker sifting through the wreckage at the World Trade Center site was interviewed on TV. We New Yorkers push and shove, he said, and we might hate the person standing right next to us. But when a disaster happens, we turn to that same person and ask, what can I do to help? Often it takes a disaster for us to realize how wonderful people can be. Scores of firefighters and rescue workers and volunteers risked their lives, and some lost their lives, just trying to rescue perfect strangers. Merchants in downtown New York offered people escaping the smoke bottles of water and tennis shoes to help them make their way out of town. One of the most touching stories I read was of a woman who worked at one of the towers. She was on crutches and couldn't make it down the stairs by herself. A coworker she knew only as Louie carried her on his shoulders 54 flights down a stairwell where the heat was 90 degrees. And communities around the world have held vigils and memorial services for the victims of that Tuesday's tragedy in an incredible demonstration of solidarity for their fellow human beings. On Rosh Hashanah, one of the Torah readings is Genesis chapters 1 and 2, the story of the creation of the world, because of course Rosh Hashanah is the anniversary of the world's creation. When God created the world, God said it was good. Let us join together this year in bringing goodness back into this world. And that's still true today, 20 years later. So I'd like to open it up and see if people would like to maybe share some memories of the day that this happened, or share some lessons that you might have learned from 20 years of the fight against terror and the realization that we're not the innocent people we thought we were in terms of being very vulnerable to terror. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to look down here because this is where I can see all of you. Does anybody want to share anything? Any thoughts? Nobody wants to share?
I will.
Yes, please.
This is Lynn Yarmoff. At the time, I was working as a preschool teacher at the preschool associated with our temple. And I was scheduled to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And our time, that was a little after when the first plane hit the Trade Center. And the first thing I would do in the morning would be to turn on Good Morning America while as I was getting dressed and getting ready to go to work. And Channel 7 News showed that immediately as it happened. I don't know how they had it, but I ran upstairs to Jory and told him what happened and to come downstairs and watch. And we saw the second plane go in. And we had family living on Manhattan. And I couldn't believe it. I was between going crazy and getting ready to go to school. I was dealing with 2-year-olds at the time. 2 and 3-year-olds. It was very difficult. I remember arriving at work and I walked into the office first and I told them I don't know if I could stay the whole day. And explaining to them that we have cousins there, we have aunts there, and we have to find out what's happening. And I was pretty good with the kids, but a couple times during the day, I had tears coming down, and they would come over, Mrs. Armoff, what's the matter? But it was very, very frightening. Even here on the West Coast,
Yeah.
it was very frightening.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Lynn. Christine?
My niece, who lives in Brooklyn, was due to have an interview first thing in the morning in the World Trade Center.
Oh my God.
And I like like before, I got up early and I was watching the news, Channel 7, and I saw this and I flipped out. I tried to get her on the cell, it wasn't answering, and I tried my friend Mary, who lives down in that area, and she wasn't answering, so I called her office, and her administrative assistant answered, and I said, "Get out of there." It was the building right across from the World Trade Centers that later fell down, right? I said, "Get home." I said, "Mary will understand. I'll explain everything to her. You need to get out of there now." And she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm one of her friends, and there's a terrible, terrible incident, and you've got to get out of there." So she said, "Okay." And she said, "You'll take care of it with Mary?" I said, "Oh, yes." And then my friends Josephine and Sarah, my little niece, lived around the corner on Duane Street, and it was such a beautiful day. They had, I found out later, they had their windows open in their loft because it was a gorgeous early autumn day in New York. And then they saw this billowing cloud coming toward them. They didn't have the TV on, and slammed the windows shut, and were evacuated very shortly thereafter. I didn't get to contact them for 2 days. My niece I got hold of late in the evening that evening, and it turns out that because it was a beautiful day, she got out on Canal Street and decided to walk down because it was so pretty, and because she was nervous and she thought she'd walk it out, and she saw it, the plane go into the tower, and turned right around. She walked 4 miles home because the subways shut down very shortly afterwards.
That's the thing,
Yeah,
if you
and
happen to-
later my friend Josephine died of a cancer from the particulate matter in the air. It was horrible. I mean, just not knowing was the worst part. And
not
just
knowing, and there are people who are still ill today from what happened then.
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, the cancer rates in southern Manhattan are huge.
5 or whatever, there you were safe, right? You took your kid to kindergarten and
Yeah.
so there's a randomness to it that's really terrifying. Well, I'm glad your niece is okay. Go ahead, Bill.
I thought it was interesting this evening. Lester Holt on the evening news was talking to individuals, we're talking some 20 years later. How do they feel, today, especially those ones that survived? And they had similar thoughts that I thought to myself. I'm as shocked today when I think about it as I was 20 years ago, all the loss and the pain and the suffering. And they had Condoleezza Rice on there. And the question was asked, can this happen again? Well, hopefully because of our intelligence agencies talking to each other, it won't. But nothing precludes it from happening again. And all we can do is pray that it won't.
Yeah, unfortunately. Any more comments?
Could I share?
Yes. Shantae, go ahead.
I was stationed at MacDill, and it's a very high vis base. And I was on the flight line, and our radios started going crazy. It was an alarm you practice for, but you never expect to hear in real life. All I remember is seeing a bunch of people literally jumping off airplanes, trying to shut off airplanes, and they're running towards the hangar because we didn't know what was going on. I get to my office in the hangar, and I see this. It was the aftermath of the first plane going down, the first building starting to go down. And I mean, we all kind of looked at each other, and that was the first time that we worked for a full 24-hour period, because it wasn't just what happened in those 3 locations, the Pentagon, Pennsylvania, and New York. There were other military bases that were targeted at the same time. That's a little known fact, because we were headquarters CENTCOM. I remember that day because that was the first time I was separated from my son for as long as I was, because I gave him to my boss, whose husband was a civilian, and I didn't see him for a month. September 11th was a lot on a lot of people. And I remember a lot of people deploying from Florida to New York to go help, especially the National Guardsmen and all our special ops guys, because those guys were at work. So thinking about it 20 years later, it's still a day. It's a very hard day.
Very hard.
It's a very hard day.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And the country did come together. It'd be nice if there was some way we could come together again without having to have a horrible trauma like that. So let's hope for peace in the year ahead. Announcements. We have a service Wednesday night at 7 and a service all day starting at 10 a.m. We have a service in the morning. We have services in the afternoon. We have Jason Winston is going to teach us Musar in the afternoon. Jill Johnson-Young is going to talk to us about grief. So we have a lot going on that day. This Saturday, as in tomorrow evening, we have a meditation and healing service that will be co-led by me as well as by Howard Rubin and Eric Sabar. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that at 6:30. I would like to thank our wonderful musicians, as always. Morris, very soulful, as somebody said in the chat, and Jory. And Nick, thank you so much for running our tech tonight, and Andrea's recording and live streaming. So it takes a village to do this at this point, right? Please don't forget that we have a virtual digital food drive that Eileen Sign organized. And thank you again, Eileen, for doing this. Please remember that people are hungry in our community and it's important to give. We'll continue with the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
This is another prayer by Alden Solovey called At the Hand of Terror 2, a 9/11 memorial prayer. Creator of all, source and shelter, grant a perfect rest under your tabernacle of peace to those who died in the 9/11 attacks on the United States. Remember the works of their hands and the message of their hearts, and grant perfect rest to those who died in service to others. May their dedication to protecting life serve as a shining lamp of love, and the works of their hands bring us all merit in heaven. Grant the families of all who perished peace and comfort for your name's sake, and for the sake of those who perished, bring an end to violence and terror. Speedily in our days, may their memories be sanctified with joy and love. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life, a living blessing in our midst. And of course, we now think of those who perished in our community. May their memories be for a blessing. We offer our condolences to the family of Bob Perlstein and to the family of Harel Altman. We're observing Shiva for Alan Pasternak, brother-in-law of Joan Pasternak, and uncle to the Mangus family. Is anyone else observing Shiva, Shloshim, or the first year of mourning would like to mention a name? We'll look it up. Brenda Oppenheim, first year. Shiva Elaine Burke. Stan Walkman. First year Solomon Fishman. Sanford Victor, first year. Bernie Naiman. Pauline Geerlings, first year. Kirsten Fischler, Shloshim. Pat Constantini, first year. Roald Flater. We're also observing yard sites this Shabbat for Nathan Falk, Tilly Falk, Myrna S. Jaspin, Irving Jaspin, Joseph Lask, John Breslar, Morris Kirshner, Dorothy Kurland, Helen Lewandowski, John Schlissel, Irving Olson, Adeline Tenenbaum, Isidore Ziskind, Emma Kussner, Fanny Aronovitz, Edward Halleck, Mel Herman, Louis Katz, Gerard Loeb, Linda Handley, Thelma Levine, Anna Schneider, Charles Art Woodcock, Ruby Barnett, Solomon Isaacs Aarons, Roeen Loeb, Ralph Loeb, Pauline McGinnis, Richard Young, Augusta Dick, Anna R. Figatin, Jonathan Charco, Abe Chernak, Samuel Sherman, Beverly Scher. Are there any other yard sites? Heshi Glick, first year. Albert Archibek Jr., first year. And of course, we think of those who perished in the Holocaust and have no one to say the mourner's Kaddish for them. Feel free to unmute yourselves for the mourner's Kaddish. Yikadal, Yikadash, Shemei Rabba, V'Almadi V'Rutei, V'Lich V'Rutei, V'Chayachon V'Chayei Kol Beit Yisrael, V'Agalah V'Hei Shemei Rabba Me'Rachel Lo Me'Maya. Rabbi Shabbat Ha'ar V'Dro V'Tadar V'Taleb V'Shabbat V'Ekla Min Kol Mishpach the Amir Alma Shlama Rab Min Shemaya Kol Yisrael Otzei Romav Kuya Olam Kol With the source of peace, send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say. Amen. And I'd also like to thank Magnus for lighting our candles this evening, and Carolee Jaspin for leading us in the Ve'ahavta. And Shante, we are very, very grateful for your service to our country. We are going to conclude with, where'd my page go? Sim Shalom, yes, because we're looking for peace.
Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Chen v'chesed berachamim v'chesed berachamim Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha
And what would Shabbat be without a motzi with a beautiful round challah?
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Let's
Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy your evening. See you tomorrow night, I hope.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Morris, Jory, Rabbi, everyone. Beautiful service. Beautiful.
Thank you. And Nick's kids
Shabbat
are
Shalom,
going to
everybody. Have a good evening. Stay safe.
Challah, French toast.
Shabbat Shalom.